Hey, good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. So I know my plan was to do a little catch up today, but I see other stuff has popped off. I saw early this morning. Um, can't think of his name. The one that said check it out. On a lot of the hip hop stuff about Big U's son was on a live early this morning. I know they said he had two sons, and one of them played pro ball. So I'll get on to that later on today. I also saw that Julio's, the female, Andrews, whatever, Alicia Andrews, she was found guilty of manslaughter and not guilty for conspiracy. I tried to get into that. I just couldn't. It's just too much other stuff that was going on. Okay, so I am very interested in this interview, and then I have another one coming back later on today to catch up with her, as well as I want to get caught up on what's going on with Erica. What's his name? Charlie Kirk's widow, if you say. And then after this one, I have it lined up for another sound political conversation from President Obama. Now that one is going to be the next one after this. So let's get caught up. Let's get caught up. Candace is finna take.
Economist magazine, it
It's
described
the
Gaza
Israel.
as, quote, a human.
Shout out to Candace Owens. We've never did one of her interviews. We typically talk about Charlie Kirk and the investigation, her personal investigation, and led work into his assassination. What? I saw something. Did I send it to myself? I think I sent it to myself about the CIA. Ooh, yeah, it went deep. It also talked about, hold on, I may need to start there. About them Bushes. Papa Bush. JFK.
97% of the time. You're
Ooh, yeah, that doctor. These doctors are whistleblowing, ain't they? Talked about that chemo. Ooh, this one too. I just did this one about why. I need to save that one for President Obama. That one I need to save. National Guard. Oh, them DC National Guard had a tiff last night. Absolutely, JD Vance. Yeah, I need to watch that one. I think I fell asleep on him. His family used to be on food stamps. Why do meat eaters? Yeah, we don't want to talk about that. They don't want to know that meat is the reason why a lot of us stay sick. Texas police showed up. Hold on. It's a lot. I told y'all, it's a lot of these folks on food stamps. Didn't want nobody to know it. I thought I put JFK so I know where it's at. Yeah, we know Como's brother. Como's. is on the Epstein list. We know that. See, okay, this one.
John F. Kennedy was assassinated by CIA under Allen Dulles' instructions with the joyous cooperation of people.
Oh, Lord. I be trying to get up close on it so y'all can really hear it and be cutting it off. I'm going to leave it alone this time. Let's go.
John F. Kennedy was assassinated by CIA under Allen Dulles' instructions with the joyous cooperation of pedophile J. Edgar Hoover, founder of the FBI, and the approval of Lyndon Baines Johnson, the most crooked politician in history up until Hillary Clinton, with the active participation of the Bush family. George W. Bush Sr. was part of the deal, and Howard Hunt was part of the deal. Reince Priebus is the
Like Hunt
of the rigged system. Reince Priebus and Paul Ryan and probably Mike Pence represent the rigged system. They represent the Bush family, they represent Dick Cheney, Bob Gates, all of these people who are the establishment. Bill Gates is sterilizing people all over the world, okay? Marco Rubio is a closet gay. He's being blackmailed. John Kasich has his own issues. We don't need a National Security Council. A National Security Council is Dick Cheney's foothold in the White House. It's the neoconservative family, it's the Clinton family, it's the Bush family, it's the Rothschilds, it's the Vatican in the White House. John F. Kennedy was assassinated by CIA under Allen Dulles' instructions with the joyous cooperation of pedophile J. Edgar Hoover, founder of the FBI, and the approval of Lyndon Baines Johnson, the most crooked politician in history up until Hillary Clinton, with the active participation of the Bush family. George W. Bush Sr. was part of the deal, and Howard Hunt was part of the deal. Reince Priebus is the epitome of the rigged system.
The rigged
Reince Priebus and Paul Ryan and probably
system.
Mike Pence represent the rigged system. They represent the Bush family, they represent Dick Cheney, Bob Gates, all of these people who are the establishment. Bill Gates is sterile.
Rigged system. It was one more. And it talked about hold on, let me see. One more. Oh no, not that one. I think it was pertaining to Charlie. What is this?
Show this video to anyone still calling the GOP the party of family values. Robert Morris, Trump's spiritual advisor, 5 counts, crimes against children. Ralph Shorty, Trump's 2016.
That was not it. What is this one?
A lot of people don't realize is that George Bush Sr. was an active participant in the assassination of John F. Kennedy.
That's a different one. No, let me listen. That's a different one.
A lot of people don't realize is that George Bush Sr. was an active participant in the assassination of John F. Kennedy, as was Howard Hunt, George Bush's longtime aide. Yitzhak Rabin was the Israeli participant in the cabal and was present in Dallas to observe the assassination with his own eyes. And by the way, the food industry and the pharmaceutical industry have 3 goals in life: to make all of us fat and give us diseases, to sell us stuff that doesn't work to cure those diseases, and to make a big profit while doing so.
Are y'all listening with y'all good ear?
The Food and Drug Administration and the Center for
Yes,
Disease Control
yes.
are criminal networks. They should be under indictment because their job in life is to approve the poisoning and lethal injection
Yes,
of
Janet.
American citizens. This is just so totally wrong. The reason we have 1,000 military bases all over the world is
Listen.
not to project military power. It's to provide CIA with a lily pad through which it can smuggle guns, gold, drugs, cash, and small children.
Bam. That one. Y'all please come in hitting the like button, even if you're just listening in from the clouds. Please. That one right there. I will play it again. And immediately when I heard that, I said, okay. Okay, so that would kind of make sense to Trump allowing Qatar to come to the U.S. now and build an Air Force. Hi, Pepper Moon. Build a airport after we've heard him out of his own mouth say that Qatar are terrorists. But you signed, you made a deal, right, with Qatar. Now they're your best friend. You really backdoored your partner, not knew me, not gonna sue me, Bibi Netanyahu. You attempted to backdoor him with Qatar. Full circle truth. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. You stay with me long enough and listen with your good ear, you will absolutely be able to see the whole picture. We just have to park stuff and connect the dots as it rolls in. And I tell y'all all the time, it's gonna roll in. It always do. But anyway, so that would make sense as to why he backdoored. You know, it's always the highest bidder. It's always about making money with Trump. Okay? Let terrorists, Qatar, come to the United States on U.S. soil to build a Air Force base. Right? In the city and town in which they are saying CIA intelligence was all wrapped into Charlie Kirk's disappearance because he renounced pro-Israel. Okay? Pump that. Pause. So now let's get to the human smuggling and the guns. You know, because of the whole gun conspiracy that was used, that wasn't used, really no blood. Yeah, it was some blood. It gushed out, all of that. Candace is saying that was not the gun that was used. The guy on top of the roof in all black, tactical helmet on his head. I could have sworn it was a metal something. Could have been a badge. Could have been something in front of the guy on top of the roof. Right? We know Tyler Robinson was a scapegoat. So he's the Lee Harvey Oswald in this scenario. Right? Since they want to compare it to JFK, who was taken out by the CIA, did not, he was the first who couldn't be bought by Israel, the 1948 Israel, right? And so I said, okay, so, and the smuggling, and the human trafficking. Now he said kids, which is what that ballroom was for, on the cool, in disguise. And yes, Janet, he did say Hoover was a pedo. Now remember, in Trump's deposition, He said, he said, what they do with women and kids and stuff, they've been doing that for 100 years, a million years. So I was not surprised to hear Hoover. Let's go.
For the elite. A lot of people don't realize is that George Bush Sr. was an active participant in the assassination of John F. Kennedy, as was Howard Hunt, George Bush's longtime aide. Yitzhak Rabin was the Israeli participant in the cabal and was present in Dallas to observe the assassination with his own eyes. And by the way, the food industry and the pharma.
So it came from Israel because he could not be bought. So Israel had to see it with his own eyes.
Pharmaceutical industry have three goals in life: to make all of us fat and give us diseases, to sell.
Give us diseases. They all in cahoots together. Give us diseases.
Sell us stuff that doesn't work to cure those diseases and to make a big profit.
This is why I'm constantly preaching, sending uploads about natural stuff to take, to heal. So it's a difference in healing and medicine that is poison, allegedly, to keep with side effects so that it can keep you sick. Biggest drug dealers is pharmaceutical, and it's on purpose. And if you notice, they all in cahoots together, all of them.
Profit while doing so. Okay? The Food and Drug Administration and the Center for Disease Control are criminal networks.
Absolutely.
They should be under indictment because their job in life is to approve the poisoning and lethal injection of American citizens. This is just so totally wrong. The reason we have 1,000 military bases all over the world.
I need for y'all to hear this one with y'all good ear. Yes, Pepper Moon, a lot of information. I do agree, but I have to. It is a must. It is a must. I have to be obedient. I have to be obedient with it. I have to do my part to spread the word. We have to know this was all planned in order to keep us ill. First, make money off of poisonous, make money off of us. The poison is supposed to, once they make money off you, you're no longer necessary. So let's just try to hurry up and do the depopulation, and get them on out the way. And I need for us to stock up on natural supplements because they have said that the next pandemic, the next whatever they send our way, is supposed to be 10 times worse than the COVID. So natural. Right now, I'm assuming that they are coming up with a cocktail to put in our arms or spray in the air or whatever, that is going to either send people to the hospital again or take you out. And we know for sure natural herbs work because when they did not have a cocktail, the doctors were forced to tell us what to naturally build your immune system up. Please, Get into the natural herbs and tea to detox the parasites out your body. If you was with us last night, Trump is using the word, he is looking at us like parasites. So I'm saying, okay, now I've been on parasite kick here lately. Get the parasites out your body. They are silently taking over our bodies and we don't even know it. Okay, let's go.
World is not to project military power. It's to provide CIA with a lily pad through which it can smuggle guns, gold, drugs, cash, and small children for the elite. A lot of people don't realize that George Bush Sr. was an active participant in the assassination of John F. Kennedy, as was Howard Hunt, George Bush's longtime aide. Yitzhak Rabin was the Israeli participant in the cabal and was present in Dallas to observe the assassination with his own eyes. And by the way, the food industry and the pharmaceutical industry have three goals in life: to make all of us fat and give us diseases, to sell us stuff that doesn't work to cure those diseases, and to make a big profit while doing so.
Absolutely.
Okay? The Food and Drug Administration and the Center for Disease Control are criminal networks.
Yep. Okay, let me get off of that. And I want y'all to hear this with y'all good ear. And then we'll get to Israel. Listen.
You are not going to believe this, and honestly, it's going to make you furious, as it did me. You know that $40 billion that Donald Trump sent to Argentina? It wasn't foreign aid. It wasn't a trade deal. It was a bailout for his billionaire buddies. This is corporate colonialism straight up. Follow the money. See, here's what's really happening. Most of Argentina's best farmland isn't owned by the Argentinians, friend. No, it's owned by, you guessed it, American corporations and investors. So when Argentina's economy tanked, the land's value also tanked. So these billionaire investors were about to lose billions. And suddenly, Trump swoops in like their personal banker, handing Argentina $40 billion in U.S. taxpayer money to prop up the peso and, by extension, to prop up the investments of his billionaire buddies. And then, to sweeten the deal, he opens the U.S. markets to Argentine beef. Except, guess what? That beef is being raised on American-owned farms down in Argentina. So now Trump's billionaires' friends make a fortune selling Americans imported beef that they grew on stolen land, more or less, while American farmers here are getting crushed by competition that we paid for. And if that's not corrupt...
I said the other day, it's not a red or blue. He is a traitor of both. You understand? He is trading, backdooring, undercutting, left, right, black and white. He ain't loyal to none of us in the U.S. because they are investing in foreign countries. Okay, Richard, you continue to believe that. You understand? He's investing in foreign land, just like he's investing in Israel. Okay? It's a whole, I told you, it's a whole heist with U.S. funds.
Enough, my friend. Guess who's been buying up foreclosed farmland right here in the United States of America? J.D. Vance, that's right. So it really makes you wonder, is this about Argentina, or are they building an international food empire, one bailout, one farmland buyout at a time? You are not going to believe this, and honestly, it's going to make you furious, as it did me. You know that $40 billion that Donald Trump sent to Argentina? It wasn't foreign aid. It wasn't a trade deal. It was a bailout for his billionaire buddies. This is corporate colonialism straight up. Follow the money. See, here's what's really happening. Most of Argentina's best farmland isn't owned by the Argentinians, friend. No, it's owned by, you guessed it, American corporations and investors. So when Argentina's economy tanked, the land's value also tanked. So these billionaire investors were about to lose billions. And suddenly, Trump swoops in like their personal banker, handing Argentina $40 billion in U.S. taxpayer money to prop up the peso and, by extension, to prop up the investments of his billionaire buddies. And then, to sweeten the deal, he opens the U.S. markets to Argentine beef. Except, guess what? That beef is being raised on American-owned farms down in Argentina. So now Trump's billionaires' friends make a fortune selling Americans imported beef that they...
So when he promised the farmers, I got you farmers. He wasn't talking about the farmers in the U.S. No, sir.
So if your doctor prescribes
So that's why he
chemotherapy,
betraying
here's
everybody.
how it goes.
You understand? Everybody being betrayed. Okay, let's go. Everybody is being portrayed. So when we ask, why are they letting him get away with this? Because they have investments as well. Richard is one of those paid bots, y'all. Because he came in the last time saying the same thing. That's why I didn't even delete him or anything. It's the same message. So he's a paid bot. Okay. I mean, the truth is going to come out regardless. Y'all ready to go? Come in, hitting the like button. Bot Richard. You have to hit the like button too if you're going to stay over here. I don't care if you're a bot or not. Double tap the face of your screen on your phone. Just like that. Or hit the 3 dots at the top. Yes, indeed. Let's go.
My fellow Americans, folks, I come to you today.
Oh, no, that's not the one. Hold on. I'm sorry. Yeah, I was talking about Vance. Hold on. It's this one. His name is Norman Finkelstein. I think he is Garza. Let's listen.
Rubbish heap. The Economist magazine, it describes Gaza as, quote, a human rubbish heap. The leading UN official on Gaza describes it as, quote, a toxic dump. For the people of Israel, Gazans are vermin. They're garbage. They're human refuse.
You guys were the ones that insisted
Totally
that we all have a perspective on October 7th. Then when we looked and we pierced that veil, we went, oh my goodness, how was I ever perishable? And now you want us to shut up.
There's a problem here. A billionaire class of Jewish supremacists are now flagrantly using money as a blackmail weapon to silence not just criticism of Jews, but silence criticism of an ongoing genocide.
Hey everybody, it's Danny Erico, your trusted advisor with Sotheby's International Realty.
All right, you guys, I am super excited about this conversation. Where do I begin? I'll just begin with my personal experience. October 7th took place, and I remember immediately after there was sort of this peer pressure campaign to get everybody to make a statement about what had happened in Israel. And frankly, I was happy to make a statement about how tragic those events were, but I couldn't actually make a statement regarding why these events took place. I didn't know what had happened prior to that day. I didn't know the history of the modern state of Israel. And when I began what I would call an honest inquiry into the history of the modern state of Israel, I felt that I was basically in a pressure cooker. People that I thought were my friends were telling me not to pursue this route. I didn't comprehend what they meant when they said not to pursue this route. They were calling me names, saying that I was flirting with anti-Semitism by wanting to read books and speak to people that were on the opposite
Intelligently.
side of that issue. And I got into a lot of trouble, and I mean a lot of trouble, from people that I thought were my friends when I hosted the person who is now sitting across from me, Norm Finkelstein, on my previous show, and the things that he told me.
Got into a lot of trouble. A lot of trouble for asking about, inquiring about, wanting to be intelligent, wanting to be able to give detailed intel. I mean, since they wanted to know how someone felt, but they wanted to see, really, it was a test to see if their programming, if you're going to repeat their program and their control narrative, what they had been feeding. They just wanted you to take that and run with it. And she didn't. She wanted to be politically astute as much as possible about it. And then she got in trouble. Okay.
Make a statement regarding why these events took place. I didn't know what had happened prior to that day. I didn't know the history of the modern state of Israel. And when I began what I would call an honest inquiry into the history of the modern state of Israel, I felt that I was basically in a pressure cooker. People that I thought were my friends were telling me not to pursue this route. I didn't comprehend what they meant when they said not to pursue this route. They were calling me names, saying that I was flirting with anti-Semitism by wanting to read books and speak to people that were on the opposite side of that issue. And I got into a lot of trouble, and I mean a lot of trouble, from people that I thought were my friends when I hosted the person who is now sitting across from me, Norm Finkelstein, on my previous show. And the things that he told me about Gaza were shocking. It was especially shocking because this wasn't from someone that they could easily describe as anti-Semitic, giving his history, which he's going to tell you about today. Very important discussion. And he's also an individual that I thought, quite strangely, none of the people who were peer pressuring me were willing to debate. If Norm Finkelstein is wrong, and he could be, why wouldn't the most prominent voices of the pro-Israel debate be willing to sit down with him and have that discussion? We're going to figure out why. Norm Finkelstein, welcome to my show. Actually, mine, totally owned by me. I can host you here.
Oh, thank you so much for having me on the show.
So just in case my audience has not been introduced to you, I would first just sort of like you to, and we're going to get to your books, which are amazing, to kind of tell them your backstory and your credentials and what happened despite the fact that you were so credentialed.
The backstory is there's a personal element and there is a professional element. The personal element is that I am the son of survivors of the Nazi Holocaust. Both my parents were in what was called the Warsaw Ghetto. The Warsaw Ghetto was repressed after an uprising in April 1943. There were about 20 to 30,000 survivors of the Warsaw Ghetto uprising, and they were deported to Majdanek concentration camp. And both my father and my mother were deported to Majdanek. My mother ended up in 2 slave labor camps after Majdanek, and my father ended up in Auschwitz, and he was in the Auschwitz Death March. Every member of my family, apart from my mother and father, on both sides, everybody was exterminated. There were no aunts, there were no uncles, there were no grandparents, there was nothing. And my parents were, for reasons not worth going into now, they were decidedly on the left politically. And it had a very deep impact on me growing up. And in a way, even though I grew up in a lower middle class Jewish neighborhood,
The only kind of cheese you need this holiday season is the kind that brings everyone together.
Please
Our
double
cheeses have
tap
no
and hit the
dairy,
like
no
button.
cholesterol, and are made entirely from clean.
I never quite fit in because of my family background and a totally different mindset, I think. Okay, partially different mindset than my peers because of my parents' experience. In June 1982, we're fast forwarding. June 1982, Israel invaded Lebanon, and I got involved in the Israel-Palestine conflict. In my youth, it was mostly the war in Vietnam, the civil rights movement. In 1982, it became Israel-Palestine. I ended up writing my doctoral dissertation
And hold on.
at Princeton University peers because of my parents' experience. In June 1982, we're fast forwarding. June 1982, Israel invaded Lebanon, and I got involved in the Israel-Palestine conflict. In my youth, it was mostly the war in Vietnam, the civil rights movement. In 1982, it became Israel-Palestine. I ended up writing my doctoral dissertation at Princeton University on the theory of Zionism. And then in 1984, there was a kind of big national bestseller called From Time Immemorial, which claimed to reveal new aspects of the Israel-Palestine conflict that proved Israel was in the right and the Palestinians were in the wrong. I was still a graduate student at the time, and I demonstrated that this book, which had the endorsement of the who's who of the Jewish intellectual community back then, people like Barbara Tuchman, who you wouldn't know, Saul Bellow, the novelist, they all endorsed the book. And I am widely credited with the one exposing that it was a hoax. And from there on in, I would say, after having demonstrated that this kind of humble graduate student proving that all the luminaries were either promoting a threadbare hoax. From there on in, I would say I encountered difficulties in my professional life.
Amazing. So despite, and you did achieve your PhD,
Yes.
despite this, wasn't there sort of some fracas that happened where they didn't allow you back, or what happened at sort of the end of your career,
Well,
academic career?
right. I would say, speaking frankly, and believe me, at my age, I have no interest whatsoever in invoking pity. It's water under the bridge. I never had an academic career. I was in academia, it's called being an adjunct. And an adjunct basically means you're hired from semester to semester. It's the equivalent of, literally, the equivalent of a substitute teacher in a public school system, except a substitute teacher is paid significantly more than an adjunct. And I was never able to get beyond the adjunct status, except one brief period at DePaul University in Chicago, where by a concatenation of events, I managed to get on a tenure track job. But when the moment of truth came, I was denied tenure. And after that, because it was a kind of national story, when I was denied tenure, because Professor Alan Dershowitz of Harvard University Law School made a determined public attempt to stop me. There was a big editorial in the Wall Street Journal by him. He made a very public attempt to stop me. After that, that was 2008, 2007. After that, I was completely unemployed, not even adjunct. After
Hey,
that,
Sapphire.
actually, I know this will come as a
Yes, ma'am.
it will seem kind of unbelievable. I literally couldn't volunteer to
The
teach.
truth is going to
There were
set us
places
free.
where, in high schools, a charter school, for example, in East Harlem, where the father of the principal was a friend of mine. And his daughter, the principal, was really wonderful, and she ran a tight ship. That was a darn good school. You could see just walking through the hallways. I said, I'll volunteer. No, no. So at that point, after the DePaul incident, I was completely blacklisted, but I never got started. I never got, the plane never left the tarmac.
Well, I do want to stress here, as I have been stressing on my show, that these schools are Soviet indoctrination camps. I implore people to read Thomas Sowell's book about inside the American education system, and what he is saying, it's perfectly into there. The point is to indoctrinate your children, and if you do not have a doctor, so to speak, that is willing to go into the classrooms and do that indoctrination, they won't let them in. And this is absolutely proof of that. Okay, so I want to sort of give the same background because you were a major piece of me waking up and realizing that I knew nothing about Gaza. Could you just unpack for people who are perhaps hearing this for the first time? I think a lot of people we've seen Israel support has virtually collapsed, but and that's because of the behavior that's going on with the censorship has become so extreme in America. But let's actually give these people a background education like you gave me when you came on my show of what actually Gaza is, what is the history there, what happened to these people in 1948.
Let's go.
Obviously, within the limits of an interview, it's very hard to go through that history with any kind of.
Well, you have a book for it, so I am going to be a shameless promoter of this because we're going to give you the spark notes here, but Gaza, an inquest into its martyrdom is the title of the book that will be relevant for this. But here we're going to give you some spark notes.
Shout out to Candace.
Now, I guess every town has a flavor all its own.
Basically, if I were to try to summarize it for the purposes of this conversation, I believe the place to begin is 1948.
Yes,
The
indeed.
state of Israel is created. In the course of its creation, about 90% of the indigenous Palestinian population of Israel was expelled. About 750,000 people. Of those 750,000, about 300,000 were expelled to Gaza. And that's when Gaza kind of became Gaza. It was, right now, of the population of Gaza, about 80% are refugees from the 1948 war or descendants of those refugees under international law. A descendant of a refugee is still counted as a refugee. So it's 80% a refugee population. And it's also about 50% a child population. Now, from the moment Gaza came under Egyptian administration after the 1948 war,
Because we're going to give you the
Let's
spark
back
notes here,
up.
but Gaza, an inquest into its martyrdom
He
is
said
the
a
title of the book that will be relevant
1948
for this. But here we're going to give you some spark notes.
the state of Israel.
basically, if I were to try to summarize it for the purposes of this conversation, I believe the place to begin is 1948. The state of Israel is created. In the course of its creation, about 90% of the indigenous Palestinian population of Israel was expelled. About 750,000 people. Of those 750,000, about 300,000 were expelled to Gaza. And that's when Gaza kind of became Gaza. It was, right now, of the population of Gaza, about 80% are refugees from the 1948 war or descendants of those refugees under international law. A descendant of a refugee is still counted as a refugee. So it's 80% a refugee population. And it's also about 50% a child population. Now, from the moment Gaza came under Egyptian administration. After the 1948 war, Gaza comes under Egyptian administration. It's a very interesting fact when you start going through the history. There are all these outside observers who go into Gaza, either to work there, like under the auspices of the UN, or just to see the situation. Now, one of the things that struck me was each time somebody goes to Gaza, they describe Gaza as a huge concentration camp. Now, this is still under Egyptian rule. So ELM Burns, the main UN official in Gaza, he writes a book Between Arab and Jew. How does he describe Gaza? He described it as a huge concentration camp. In 1967, during the June 1967 war, Gaza comes under Israeli control. In July 1967, the father of Al Gore, the presidential candidate, his father was also a senator. So Al Gore, or Senator Gore, meaning the father, he goes to Gaza. He comes back and he testifies before the U.S. Congress. How does he describe Gaza? He says Gaza is, quote, a huge concentration camp on the sand, if you will.
Someone needed to create a path that would allow black musicians from all walks of life to share their God-given.
You now fast forward to 2002. One of Israel's leading sociologists, his name was Baruch Kimmerling, he writes a little book. The little book is called Politicide. How does he describe Gaza? He describes Gaza as, quote, the biggest concentration camp ever. 2004, the head of Israel's National Security Council. His name is Giora Eiland. He's still around. He's active now behind the scenes in the Netanyahu government. How does he describe Gaza? He describes Gaza as a huge concentration camp. Now bear in mind, this is before Israel imposed the blockade of Gaza. It was already a horror show. It's been a horror show since 1948. In 2006, Israel imposes a blockade on Gaza. It decides what goes in, it decides what goes out. It decides who goes in, it decides who goes out. They put Gaza on what they call a humanitarian minimum diet. You know what that meant?
Okay, Sapphire, are you from the Middle East? Okay. It's like, okay, I'm thinking, why is she debating this man? Why are you debating him? I'm trying to understand where you coming from. He already told us it became a concentration camp when they went in and took over. It was taken over through that war in 1948 when it was created. It was created by the Rothschilds. We already know that. They went in and stole the land and then put the people in the concentration camp. So what part are you missing? Do I need to replay it? Did you miss it? I mean, because I heard him say it. So that's why when I look at your comments, I'm like, okay, he already said that. So maybe I need to and he's talking slow, so let's go. Let's listen. Listen what I good here.
Counted as a refugee, so it's 80% a.
Well, that's what happened in the concentration camp. I understand that. It's just like Trump is taking the immigrants and he is sending them to foreign land. He's sending them places to be put in a concentration camp, tortured, unalive. I mean, yeah. No, I'm just saying I'm stopping and asking because when I read your comments like that, it's as if you are challenging what he's saying, as if he's not telling the truth. So if somebody is reading the comments, it would look like you're saying he's not telling the truth, or when you're asking what happened to him, He already told us what happened to him. So I'm just trying to get a clear understanding because I want us to learn. That's the whole purpose of this, so that we'll have a full and better understanding about what's going on over there, why you can't be a question Israel, and if you're not pro-Israel, you become a Semite, semantic, or whatever. We don't know nothing about unless you're into this stuff. And at the point that they created Israel, so let's be clear. This is my interpretation. This is how I feel. At the point that they created the state of Israel, it was created to take over. So at that point, as far as I'm concerned, the takeover were Zionists. They definitely wasn't Christians. So if they're not of Christ, then I'm going to say they are Zionists. Okay, is that fair? Is that? I didn't even see your question, Janet. What was your question? That is when Gaza became about. Yes, I mean that's what he said. I am listening. I'm trying to understand. I like to get to facts, to connect dots that have been part because we didn't have a full understanding. So now we're hearing from someone who was there, have a full understanding of Gaza and Israel, 1948. So at that point, we know that it's not about God. 1948 draws the line. Right? So it is no longer about two brothers. That's why I want us to be clear. Christians who are saying, oh, this is biblical. No, it is not. And if I need to go back and play that, no, sir. No, sir. So let's get a better understanding of what's going on so that we will be solid as possible. But 1948, and I am glad that they are referencing 1948. It separates it for me. So this is when the devil trying to rewrite the Bible, just like they try to control everything else. They try to rewrite history. Their attempt was to rewrite Revelations and say that they are the chosen, in spite of what the Bible says. They are the chosen, and if you go against the chosen, God gonna strike you down, knowing full and dang well that you cannot. It tells you, do not alter my word. It's in the Bible. Very end. I remember that a long time ago. Do not change or alter. So at the point that they did that, they are trying to rewrite the Bible. So they think they God. And here lies the problem. Let's go.
refugee population.
Hey.
And it's
Hey,
also
Lisa.
about 50% a child population.
And so is Trump. And Bibi Netanyahu is from is Poland. Yeah. So we know it ain't about brothers. I mean, huh? In 1948, Netanyahu wasn't even there. Hell, he was probably in Philly, West Philadelphia, born and raised. Yeah, he was either in New York or Philly. Yeah, it's all about money. It's all about money. Okay, let's go. Okay, I'm sorry.
Of what actually
Oh, and here come a commercial. I guess we was talking too long.
Gaza is, what is the history there, what happened to these people in 1948.
Obviously, within the limits of an interview, it's very hard to go through that history with any kind of.
Well, you have a book for it, so I am going to be a shameless promoter of this, because we're going to give you the spark notes here, but Gaza, an inquest into its martyrdom is the title of the book that will be relevant for this. But here we're going to give you some spark notes.
Basically, if I were to try to summarize it for the purposes of this conversation, I believe the place to begin is 1948. The State of Israel is created. In the course of its creation, about 90% of the indigenous Palestinian population of Israel was expelled. About 750,000 people. Of those 750,000, about 300,000 were expelled to Gaza. And that's when Gaza kind of became Gaza. It was right now of the population of Gaza, about 80% are refugees from the 1948 war or descendants of those refugees. Under international law, a descendant of a refugee is still counted as a refugee. So it's 80% a refugee population. And it's also about 50% a child population. Now, from the moment Gaza came under Egyptian administration, after the 1948 war, Gaza comes under Egyptian administration. It's a very interesting fact when you start going through the history. There are all these outside observers who go into Gaza, either to work there, like under the auspices of the UN, or just to see the situation. And one of the things that struck me was each time somebody goes to Gaza, they describe Gaza as a huge concentration camp. Now, this is still under Egyptian rule. So ELM Burns, the main UN official in Gaza, he writes a book Between Arab and Jew. How does he describe Gaza? He describes it as a huge concentration camp. In 1967, during the June 1967 war, Gaza comes under Israeli control. In July 1967, the father of Al Gore, the presidential candidate, his father was also a senator. So Al Gore, or Senator Gore, meaning the father, he goes to Gaza. He comes back and he testifies before the U.S. Congress. How does he describe Gaza? He says Gaza is, quote, a huge concentration camp on the sand, if you will. We now fast forward to 2002. Now, one of Israel's leading sociologists, his name was Baruch Kimmerling, he writes a little book. The little book is called Politicide. How does he describe Gaza? He describes Gaza as, quote, the biggest concentration camp ever. 2004, the head of Israel's National Security Council. His name is Giora Eiland. He's still around. He's active now behind the scenes in the Netanyahu government. How does he describe Gaza? He describes Gaza as a huge concentration camp. Now bear in mind, this is before Israel imposed the blockade of Gaza. It was already a horror show. It's been a horror show since 1948. In 2006, Israel imposes a blockade on Gaza. It decides what goes in, it decides what goes out. It decides who goes in, it decides who goes out. They put Gaza on what they call a humanitarian minimum diet. You know what that meant? It meant they calculated, literally, We're not talking about hyperbole now, poetry. They calculate the caloric diet of everyone living in Gaza, and they admitted just enough food to avoid scenes of starvation. That was 2006. We're not talking about after October 7th. They prohibited baby chicks from going into Gaza. They prohibited chocolate from going into Gaza. They prohibited potato chips from going into Gaza. They prohibited condiments from going into Gaza. No cinnamon allowed in Gaza. Why? They wanted to create such intolerable conditions that the population of Gaza would overthrow the government that they elected. So that was Gaza. Now, you come to 2006, October 6th, okay? You come to 2006.
But why not cinnamon? So cinnamon is an aid. Yeah, did y'all check that out? I mean, I know I'm on the natural herbs of things, but cinnamon was not allowed. Cinnamon has healing properties.
Economist magazine, which you know is not a flaming liberal magazine, it describes Gaza as, quote, a human rubbish heap.
Did you know you can use AI to create voiceover audio? Natural Reader. AI voice generator is
The leading UN official on Gaza describes it as, quote, a toxic dump. 60% of the young people in Gaza, the people who burst the gates of Gaza on October 7th, 60% of them are unemployed. All they have to look forward to when they get up each morning is to pace the perimeter of this tiny parcel of land, 26 miles long, the length of a marathon, 5 miles wide. That was Gaza. It was exactly what the UN officials said, exactly what Al Gore's father said, exactly what the head of the Israeli National Security Council said. They were born into, they languished in, and they were destined to die in a concentration camp. It was like an elephant burial ground, really. And when I struggled after October 7th, I've said this many times, but it's a fact. It's not a drama point. You know, what happened October 7th was awful. There's no doubt in my mind about that. The magnitude was significant. 1,200 people killed, about estimates, it's not estimates, close to 800 of them civilians, 400 combatants, Israeli IDF members of the Israeli Defense Forces. It's a significant number. Can't get around that. I know there are all sorts of stories about Israel having killed a large number. I've investigated as best I can. And I'll admit, you know, there's still room on the margins for error, but I think it was committed by Hamas. And so how do you reckon something like that? But in politics, there are many levels. There's the facts. There's your political judgment. There's your legal judgment. There's your moral judgment. And they don't come directly from the facts. They do not. They go through many filters or sieves before you get a moral judgment. And when I started to try to think it through, I came upon in my mind the Nat Turner Rebellion. So, for those of your listeners who are unaware, it was the largest slave revolt in American history. And Nat Turner, he gave the order. All the historians agree on this. There isn't a huge literature on Nat Turner, but there is a literature. they all agree on one point. He gave the order, which he never denied. He did a famous confession. We don't know how much of the confession is actually him and how much is the person who's writing it. But this part seemed real. The order was kill all white people. Kill all white people. And that's what they proceeded to do. They went on what you might call a 48-hour rampage. Less than 48 hours, actually.
Let me put my disclaimer out. This is for educational purposes only. This is for fair act for educational purposes only. This is his account of what happened. Lisa, I'm trying to understand what you're saying and what you're asking. I'm trying to understand where. So when I say Lisa, what I need a better understanding of what you're speaking of. I don't know what green stamps back in the day. What do you mean? I don't know anything about what you're talking about. So are you talking about Gaza, Israel, Palestine? Are you with us over here, or are your comments supposed to be someplace else? Because you're throwing me totally off. And I don't want people who are coming in to get confused in what you are talking about. Yeah, I don't know anything about green stamps back in the day. We're in 1948 and 66 in Gaza in Israel. What are you talking about? For the ones that are in the class listening in, please double tap the face of your screen. Hit the thumbs up or the 3 dots and get the likes up. Lisa, do you need to come back another day? Because we're not talking about food stamps right now. We're not talking about SNAPs or EBT. We are focused on this. Israel, pro-Israel, the fake Israel, the 1948 Israel. Hi, Kim. Please stay on topic. Kim, who are you saying is rude? And did you come in hitting the like button? Who, Kim or Richardson, who are you saying is rude? See, Lisa, we don't know. We do not know what you're talking about. And so now you are a deflection. So I think I need to remove you today because you are deflecting. Why? I do not know. Kim, who are you saying is rude? You were very misunderstood. All out of place. And now you're a deflection. So I'm feeling like it is done on purpose. I am very intentional on my topic today. Okay? Thank you. Kim Richardson. Speak now or are you out of here? Who are you saying is rude? So I think it's rude of you to say somebody is rude and you don't say who you talking to. So you just, yeah, you throwing rocks and hiding your fingers. You a wimp. Get your ass up out of here. I'm not going to play with y'all today. We're trying to get a better understanding. And any deflecting, intentional deflecting, after I asked you what it is and y'all don't come on with it, I'm going to put you out. Because I feel like y'all don't want us to know, get closer to the truth. So I think it's intentional. So if you think I'm being rude, leave. You don't have to tell me. Just go. You didn't hit the like button no way. Shit, you don't support my platform. You ain't send not one a super chat, super sticker, or cash app. So who do you think you are? You don't run nothing over here. You one of them entitled ass people. Okay? Anybody else? We gonna hear this today. So any of them deflections, I'ma handle you accordingly. And if you don't want me to tap you on your shoulder, just politely leave, all right? I'm okay with that. Trust. Let's go.
And
So let me back up.
hacked.
Let's go.
When I started to try to think it through, I came upon in my mind the Nat Turner Rebellion. So, for those of your listeners who are unaware, it was the largest slave revolt in American history. And Nat Turner, he gave the order. All the historians agree on this. There isn't a huge literature on Nat Turner, but there is a literature. They all agree on one point. He gave the order, which he never denied. He did a famous confession. We don't know how much of the confession is actually him and how much is the person who's writing it. But this part seemed real. The order was kill all white people. Kill all white people. And that's what they proceeded to do. They went on what you might call a 48-hour rampage. Less than 48 hours, actually. And hacked men, women, babies. It was brutal. It was brutal. But then something struck me. One historian, his name is Stephen Oakes, and he's trying to understand Nat Turner's motivation.
Right.
Why did he do it?
Right. Mm-hmm.
And he said, Nat Turner was a very smart guy. There was no question about that. The person who took down his confession, he said, he was white. He said, white or black, everybody agreed. Nat Turner was a very smart guy. And then he said, the historian now, he said, there was this huge gulf for Nat Turner, very smart guy, between what he aspired to be in life and what he was destined to be because he was a slave.
Mm-hmm.
That huge gulf. He knew he was smart. And yet he also knew, as the historian Stephen Oakes put it, that this is only earthly existence he was born into, languish in, and would die a slave. And that was the people, the young people in Gaza. They knew. You see, now Gaza's in the news. But by October 6, 2023, Gaza had vanished from the news. I have made the point, because I do believe it's relevant. I had spent about 15 years just chronicling the details of what's happening in Gaza. I began roughly in the early 2000s. And by 2020,
Wow, what you're seeing right now is an ultra-realistic AI robotic dog, crafted by master engineers in Germany. From its life...
I gave up. That's a fact. And it was not a fact I was proud of, because I was writing books that were getting more and more detailed. I mean, so micro detail. And nobody was reading them. The last book I wrote was called I Accuse. My publisher, not happily, informed me it sold 370 copies. Of those 370, I purchased half of them. No, it's a fact. Because it was about a case related to Gaza in the International Criminal Court. And I was hoping to influence the court through my research. So I was going to present it to the ICC. But by 2020, I said, Norm, you have only one life to live. And am I just going to stubbornly persist in the face of the fact that nobody cares? And that was the situation in Gaza. Gaza had vanished from the political scene. By October 6, 2023, all the talk was about whether the Saudi Arabia, would join the Abraham Accords. Nobody was talking about Gaza anymore. And so the people of Gaza basically did what Nat Turner did. Now here's the thing. Imagine an account of Nat Turner that doesn't mention he was a slave. Just this crazy religious fanatic. He was a religious fanatic. No question about that. Nat Turner was a religious fanatic. He used the language of the Bible to try to make sense of his condition. That's what a religious fanatic meant. John Brown, who led the insurrection before the Civil War, he also was a religious fanatic. He deeply, fanatically believed slavery was an abomination. To the point that, I don't want to get off on a digression, but when Frederick Douglass, the great abolitionist, when he went to meet John Brown, Douglass comments in one of his, he had 3 autobiographies. In one of them, he comments, he just wouldn't stop talking about slavery. He said he was boring. He was a fanatic. He was Johnny One Note, John Brown, only about slavery. And Nat Turner, too. He was a religious fanatic. But imagine if you tried to make sense of the Nat Turner rebellion by focusing only on his religious fanaticism, like the religiously fanatical Hamas, only focus on that and not mention the guy is a slave.
Or mention, if it were the circumstance for Nat Turner, and it isn't, or mentioned the fact that Nat Turner, actually, the rebellion was funded by money that one of the slave owners gave to him. That would be something that would be important if there was the Bibi Netanyahu circumstance there, or that, the slave owners received multiple warnings and for some reason just decided to ignore the fact that this rebellion was brewing. I mean, there's a lot of things. I've been to Israel, and it is, Charlie Kirk said it best immediately after, because he had been many, many times. Truly unbelievable. It's actually quite scary because every 15 feet there's an armed person. They take their security very seriously. Now people are speaking out, and I think a lot more is going to come out because they have been censoring. Bibi has been lying, censoring, editing transcripts. I've been following the case against him pretty closely because there are Israeli publications documenting everything. Obviously, he's not well liked by the people in Israel. They were taken to the streets to protest him, but it is almost unbelievable that circumstance. Plus, when you add to the fact they intercepted a document, right, way earlier, 200 hostages were going to be taken by Hamas. It's almost unbelievable. They ignored everything, plus Egypt warning them that something was happening on the border. I have never bought that there was not that it took place. Of course, it took place, and it was terrible. That it wasn't intentionally allowed, and I truly believe that in my soul after I saw the footage prior to October 7th of Bibi Netanyahu. I'm not sure if you've seen this, but he thinks he's off record. He says, put the cameras down, like off record, and he starts detailing a plan where he's like, we got to hit Gaza so hard that they can't go back. And so they sort of needed a pretext of sorts. And do I think Bibi Netanyahu is evil enough to sacrifice his own people? Yes, 1,000,000 times over. What's been happening in Gaza is a tremendous evil. And I don't think we will truly know the full picture of how evil it was until Bibi Netanyahu is removed from power and we're able to see the transcripts that he's blocking of the conversations he had that day with his cabinet.
Now, I guess every town has a flavor all its own. But this one seems to have more than most. Perched on the edge of the prairie, where it can never lose sight of its past and can see the future forever. Fort Worth, Texas, the unexpected city.
Being a small business owner doesn't mean you have to be trapped in your office. When I Work can help you get out from behind your desk and back doing what you love most. Build a schedule in minutes, handle time off requests with ease, and manage coverage all in the same platform.
Sorry.
And do it all faster than ever before from your phone, tablet, or computer. At When I Work, we've
Can
got your
you
back.
take a minute
Office.
and double tap the screen to get the likes up?
Obviously,
Hey, James.
there are areas of interpretation here, and I don't want to
I had to
pretend
step
as if
away. Hold on.
And it is, Charlie Kirk said it best immediately after,
hold
because he had
on.
been many, many times.
I missed
it was
that.
Johnny One Note, John Brown, only about slavery, and Nat Turner too. He was a religious fanatic. But imagine if you tried to make sense of the Nat Turner rebellion by focusing only on his religious fanaticism, like the religiously fanatical Hamas. Only focus on that and not mention the guy is a slave.
Or mention if it were the circumstance for Nat Turner, and it isn't. Or
Intentionally leave that out to make it just seem like it's just out of nowhere. Just hate for them, like for no reason. I mean, there's no reason for him to, we didn't start nothing. It just Looney Tune. Yeah. That's intentional. That's intentionally controlling a narrative.
mentioned the fact that Nat Turner, actually, the rebellion was funded by money that one of the slave owners gave him. That would be something that would be important if there was the Bibi Netanyahu circumstance there, or that, the slave owners received multiple warnings and for some reason just decided to ignore the fact that this rebellion was brewing. I mean, there's a lot of things
And, hold on. Hold your wigs, ladies and gentlemen. Or another white person, gave him a little, a little change. Gave him a horse, gave him an axe, okay, here, to get them out the way. Play the end against the middle. Yeah, use him, knowing good and dang well you're gonna use him as an excuse of why it happened, and then you're gonna run around. See, people like that, I call you'll go around back, start a fire, and then run around to the front, knocking on people's doors and say, "Oh, I think you got a fire going on in the backyard," so that you could be the hero. I can't stand that manipulation. I cannot stand it. Let's go.
I've been to Israel, and it is. Charlie Kirk said it best.
Google it, Lisa.
Because he had been many, many times.
I mean, because he's already said he was a slave. They just told us. Okay, y'all, I need for us to listen with a good ear. He mentioned the word slavery. He mentioned he had the spirit of rebellion because he was a slave, and he took revenge on slave owners. And he's comparing it to how it was in Gaza and Israel when these fake Israel people went in taking over, and then made it seem like, Gaza or the Palestinians started it.
Only on his religious fanaticism, like the religiously fanatical Hamas, only focus on that and not mention the guy is a slave.
Or mention, if it were the circumstance for Nat Turner, and it isn't, or mentioned the fact that Nat Turner, actually, the rebellion was funded by money that one of the slave owners gave him. That would be something that would be important if there was the Bibi Netanyahu circumstance there, or that, the slave owners received multiple warnings and for some reason just decided to ignore the fact that this rebellion was brewing. I mean, there's a lot of things. I've been to Israel, and it is. Charlie Kirk said it best immediately after, because he had been many, many times. Truly unbelievable. It's actually quite scary because every 15 feet there's an armed person. They take their security very seriously. Now people are speaking out, and I think a lot more is going to come out because they have been censoring. Bibi has been lying, censoring, editing transcripts. I've been following the case against him pretty closely because there are Israeli publications that have been documenting everything. Obviously, he's not well liked by the people in Israel. They were taking to the streets to protest him, but it is almost unbelievable that circumstance. Plus, when you add to the fact they intercepted a document, right, way earlier that said 200 hostages were going to be taken by Hamas. It's almost unbelievable that they ignored everything, plus Egypt warning them that something was happening on the border. I have never bought that there was not that it took place. Of course it took place, and it was terrible, but that it wasn't intentionally allowed.
Absolutely.
And I truly believe that in my soul after I saw the footage prior to October 7th of Bibi Netanyahu. I'm not sure if you've seen this, but he thinks he's off record. He says, put the cameras down, like off record, and he starts detailing a plan where he's like, we got to hit Gaza so hard that they can't go back. And so they sort of needed a pretext of sorts.
Hey, Larry from Baltimore.
Do I think Bibi Netanyahu is evil enough to sacrifice his own people? Yes, a million times over. What's been happening in Gaza is a tremendous evil, and I don't think we will truly know the full picture of how evil it was until Bibi Netanyahu is removed from power and we're able to see the transcripts that he's blocking of the conversations
he ain't trying to lead like Trump ain't trying to lead.
Look, there are obviously there are areas
they
of
are very
interpretation
similar
here, and I don't want to pretend as if I have a monopoly in the truth. If you look back at 9/11, okay, our own September 11th, if you look back, and there were many people who wrote at the time, there were a lot of people in the national security establishment who had reports that there was going to be an attack. They came in, the reports came in, no question about that. You have to remember, when you are a state the size of the United States and the power of the United States, you're going to be getting each day 10,000 intelligence reports about possible terrorist attack here, possible terrorist attack there. The United States has a huge number of bases around the world. So you're always getting reports. But a intelligence establishment has to rank threats. And they ranked the Osama bin Laden threat low or lower than it should have been ranked.
On
In
purpose.
the case of Israel, here we're free to disagree. Israel it's a Jewish supremacist state. That's not my opinion, okay? So the head of Israel's main human rights organization, it's called B'Tselem, B'Tselem. And the head of Israel's human rights, B'Tselem, this is a few years ago, it's a guy named Haggai Elad, very decent guy. I've never met him. I'm not sure if he ever wanted to meet me. But decent guy. He was a Harvard-trained PhD in physics, serious fellow, okay? And he put out a little report, or he was the executive director when B'Tselem put out a report. It was probably 10, 15 years ago now, 10. My memory's bad time now. And he said, here are the basic facts. There's one state from the Mediterranean to the Jordan. There's no Israel and occupied territories. There's just one state. And he said that state, its foundation is Jewish supremacy. There are different levels of Jewish supremacy. It's different for the situation of Arabs, the Palestinians living in Israel, Palestinians living in the West Bank, Palestinians living in Gaza, and Palestinian refugees. It's different levels, but the foundation is it's a Jewish supremacist state. Now, why do I mention it? Because for the people of Israel,
as a center admin, I've seen a lot of different people come through here. We had a student come in, he signed up for the course, and he's
Gazans are vermin. They're garbage. They're human refuse. And so, when you're getting intelligence reports from Gaza that they're going to launch an operation, Israeli intelligence establishing this thing, what are you talking about? They're going to outsmart us. They are going to trick us with our surveillance, with our technology, with our IDF. This vermin is going to be able to pull this off. So I think they did the same thing as our Bush administration did with Osama bin Laden. They put it on a low priority. They were shocked that Hamas was able, after October 7th, they were shocked that Hamas was able to pull it off.
Dave Smith, who's a good friend of mine, believes, has your perspective. He does have your perspective.
Yeah, one last point on this, because, and I want to hear you out. You said the Israelis hate Netanyahu. I don't think that's true at all. Netanyahu is the longest sitting prime minister in Israeli history. If you follow it, as I do, and you're not obliged to, that's not your niche, every few years they report, Netanyahu's going, Netanyahu's going, Netanyahu's out, Netanyahu's finished. No, he's not. And do you know why? Because he's an obnoxious, narcissistic Jewish supremacist. And that's Israeli society. Obnoxious, narcissistic Jewish supremacist. When they see him, they see themselves. So there may be quarrels on this policy issue and that policy issue, but at the end of the day, they keep voting for him. And they vote for him because Netanyahu is not just the face of, he's the reality of Israeli society.
Yeah.
When they try so hard, the people who are critical of Israel, people like Bernie Sanders, who's been not bad in recent years, he has his limits, but he's been okay. He always tries to a laser beam Netanyahu. That's not true. The problem is not Netanyahu. The problem is the whole of Israeli society. If you look at the polls, half of Israeli Jews believe Israel should commit a genocide in Gaza. That's what the polls show. About 70 to 75% in polls say there are no innocents in Gaza. No innocents.
There's nothing but children.
Yeah, no innocents in Gaza, half of the population being Jewish. The former Israeli, or the current Israeli opposition leader, he said that the IDF, the Israeli Defense Forces, they kill children as a hobby. As a hobby.
Yeah, I've seen some videos of like how proud they are when they kill a child, and it's really dark. But also, I will say, you can see psychological conditioning, as in their viewpoints on the Palestinians. You can tell is being nurtured from the time that they're a child. And I ran
totally agree
into
with
somebody
that.
who
Look.
left Israel, moved to Tennessee recently, and I ran into him at a farmer's market, and he said, I absolutely love you, and I want you to know that we learn this stuff from the time we are
I
children.
totally agree with
He
that.
said, and so he left, and he said, from the time we are children, we learn to. So he kind of broke a psychological barrier to get there, obviously, as an Israeli. But you are correct. I mean, and that's why.
Controlled narrative, intentional. It's intentional. Absolutely. Just as racism, the most is intentional. It is taught. It is not natural.
Psychology really is the name of the game. When you're talking about religious fanaticism or any other fanaticism, I want to say also, there is an element of psychology, and that is why, in my capacity now, that's actually got a lot of trouble talking about the history of Sigmund Freud. But if you want to really speak about what is happening with psychology, propaganda, PR, he's the father of all of that. And going back and tracing those roots, it's very scary. I mean, these were really deeply dark people who were trying to cover up their own crimes, and that is the reality. Without going off on a tangent
Covering
here,
up their own
but you are
crimes.
correct, and I think I would like to hear your perspective on how the tentacles.
We are experiencing that right now in the U.S. in the White House, covering up their own crimes. Yes, ma'am, Jody. Absolutely.
Of that Jewish supremacy have manifested, and you are actually, and I'm sure you wouldn't refer yourself as a victim, but I'm saying what happened to you in your life, the circumstances around what happened in your academic career, is actually reflected in the Jewish supremacist. These are the perspectives that you have to have if you're going to be welcome into these spaces that we control. How did that happen?
Do you have a car? And do you have a clean driving
Okay,
record?
so
Did you know you could pay as low as 19?
Well,
okay, so I keep asking y'all to double tap the screen. I'm gonna shut it down. I'm not giving up my day on one video at a time, constantly saying double tap the screen of your phone or hit the three dots at the top. Hit the get the likes up. I mean, I'm not finna sugarcoat it with y'all. I will shut it down and watch it by myself. What's wrong with you people? Why do I have to go through this every day? Send a cash app, super chat, super sticker. Do something. If not, leave. I thought I put my alarm on. Yeah, I'm not gonna play with y'all. Not today, baby. Crazy as hell. Yep, I'm making changes. I'm not gonna do this with y'all. Mm-mm. Mm-mm. Got me messed up, baby. Not today. Three months, Janet. Yay! Yay, 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 yay. Way to go. Way to go. Way to go. And thank you for the gems. I greatly appreciate it. I'm just not seeing it. Love it. When y'all see it spinning around, just know I told you to get the likes up.
I would want to make the following points. Number one, Jewish showing since October 7th. It's actually, I'm talking about broadly.
Have manifested, and you are actually, and I'm sure you wouldn't refer yourself as a victim, but I'm saying what happened to you in your life, the circumstances around what happened in your academic career, is actually reflected in the Jewish supremacist. These are the perspectives that you have to have if you're going to be welcome into these spaces that we control. How did that happen?
Well, I would want to make the following points. Number one, the Jewish showing since October 7th. It's actually, I'm talking about broadly, American Jewish showing. It's actually not been bad. I'm actually very surprised. So, for example, somebody sent me this, let's see, the most recent poll from the Washington Post. It found that 61% of American Jews say Israel has committed war crimes in Gaza. 40% say Israel has committed genocide there. And about half are opposing what Israel is doing in Gaza. It's about 10% less than the American people in general, but it's not a bad showing. And we should recognize that.
And I say it on my show all the time. I say, when we are, it's important to recognize that. Not only that, because I grew up in Stamford, Connecticut, so I grew up in a very Jewish area. And I always remark, these are not the Jewish people that you went to school with, right? We're talking about these hubs of power, DC, Hollywood, and so it sounds like when you're reading the news, every Jewish person must hold this perspective, and that is not reality.
Look, I want to say, Candace, I'm grateful that you say that. I believe that's factually correct.
Yeah.
If you remember the first demonstrations against the genocide in Gaza, the biggest ones were led by Jews at Grand Central Station, at the Statue of Liberty. It was deeply moving. And they were very active, Jewish students were very active in the encampments around the country.
Hey, Beverly.
And they didn't get the same showcasing in the media. They tried to pretty much squash it, but it was there, and that's important to state.
Within that context, where, as I say, the results of the polls aren't bad, in my opinion. Within that context, you use the word hubs. It is a fact, and one has to, in my opinion, face it because it's having real consequences. There's a Jewish supremacist billionaire class which is exerting a huge amount of power and muscle up front and behind the scenes. So, I would just go through a few examples.
Can I throw one at you? Barry Weiss becoming the president
yes.
of CBS
Yes,
News, where I am telling you, if she actually sat an IQ test,
that's what
she
you
would
call,
be below average
right,
intelligence.
what I would call that, and I'll get to that.
Yeah.
I would call that Jewish supremacist affirmative action.
Correct.
That's
Beyond
what it
affirmative
is.
action. Yeah,
she
it's
has
crazy.
She has no competence.
She can't even hold a conversation.
agree,
You don't even want to listen to her.
She
Sapphire.
is so lacking in gray matter that she couldn't pass the test to be on The View.
How is she not embarrassed to show up for work every day knowing that probably the majority, everybody knows, the majority of people that are, probably everyone is smarter than her, they've worked harder than her, they would be better in that position, and everyone's looking at you going, this is an affirmative action hire, and I call this the children of B'nai B'rith, and people that are reading the books that I'm reading will learn a bit more about that, but it's so obvious. Did a year at Tel Aviv University. She's in the club, so to speak.
She was in the club from a quite young age.
Yeah, she was born into it.
She led the campaign at Columbia University when she was an undergraduate to try to rid the faculty of professors critical of the state of Israel. She lost that battle, but now she's obviously.
I would die of embarrassment if I showed up every day and everyone knew that I did not belong there, but Daddy made a phone call, sort of a feeling.
Yes.
I've been speaking a lot about Riverbend Ranch because I absolutely love their steaks. I tell you guys that all the time. Black Angus beef is famous for
a thing called Destiny.
Meet Gym Monster 2, your all-in-one smart home gym. Set it up anywhere, no limits, no installation.
And I said, okay, I'll do it. And I said, he asks me to do a debate.
Ultrasound to a woman that's in crisis and can
this thing called
need to act like it. That's what culture does not provide. So don't sit this one out.
I'm asked to do a debate, and I said fine, by Lex Fridman.
Thank you,
Janet.
Janet.
He asked me to do a debate.
And I appreciate you too.
I said, who do you want me to debate? He said, this thing called Destiny. I didn't know what that person was. This thing called Destiny. I said,
got a date with Destiny.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. You are my destiny. I don't claim to a distinguished academic pedigree, but at this point in my life, I'm not debating a thing called destiny. So I said to Lex Fridman, thanks, but no thanks. And then by the way, I didn't know who Lex Fridman was either. I don't follow podcasts or things like that. I'm a book person, old-fashioned. And then he gets back to me about 3 weeks later, and he says, how would you like to debate Benny Morris? I said, sure. Benny Morris is Israel's senior historian. I know his work very well, and it would be exciting for me, actually, from an intellectual level, to actually face him, because I had written a lot on him. And then Lex Fridman says, and destiny. I'm wondering, why are you harping on destiny?
This random streamer.
Yeah, it was
so strange.
It was strange. Exactly. It was so strange. I then thought to myself, if I refused, then it would look like I'm afraid to debate Benny Morris, because he's Israel's senior. And I didn't want that to be broadcast far and wide. Finkelstein afraid to debate Benny Morris. So I said, okay, if he wants to come along with Benny Morris, this thing called Destiny, I said, okay, I'll do it. And I said, I'll debate with my good friend, very smart guy, Muin Rabbani, top of the line, and we have the same political outlook. So why do I mention it? A few months later, I'm having a conversation with a friend of mine, and he says to me, you know, Destiny was paid to be on with you. I said, no, nobody told me that. He said, yeah, he was, and he described it, because he was discreet, he described it as a Israel advocacy group, had groomed him to debate me and had, I'm using the words he said, paid him handsomely to debate me. And it's an unimpeachable source. By the way, the person who told me this is not political.
Another
Just by
Charlie Kirk at that
coincidence,
time.
he could say with absolute certainty, and I know it. Why do I mention it? Because at that time, this was like this first month into October 7th, it was a kind of a revelation. But now we're 2 years later. We're 2 years later. In the time that's elapsed, not one, not two, three Ivy League presidents were toppled. There's never been, I know the history of academic freedom in our country, I've written on it. There's never been anything like it. This massive assault. How was it conducted? It started with people like Bill Ackman, the billionaire. He threatens Harvard. You don't crush the encampments, you don't get alumni money. It was very, very straightforward. It was pure blackmail.
That's what they would start doing to Charlie.
Which is, by the way, their favorite tactic. Financial blackmail comes first.
It was financial blackmail. If you look at the Harvard report on anti-Semitism, one alumni, one Jewish alumni, gave Harvard $200 million. One alumni gave Harvard $300 million. Ackman, $50 million. And then there was a petition organized. My memory is, but the number probably increased vastly. The original version of the petition, 1,200.
I don't know if it's hatred, Jody. It starts with being self-absorbed. Hatred and narcissism. I think narcissism is more about self than hatred for someone.
Threatened to withhold the
opinion.
Alumni contributions. And so, systematically, these college presidents are being ousted. I can quote to you, but I can't tell you the source, but I could tell you, no, you have to judge people by their track record, whether I have a track record of being accurate or inaccurate. When President McGill was deposed from the University of Pennsylvania, a person approached her who knew her to express commiseration with her situation. And she replied with 2 words, money talks.
I can speak to that. I mean, I've lived it, and that is the first thing that happens, which is financial blackmail. And a lot of people want to know, well, why is this person doing this, or why are they not saying it? And like, at the end of the day, they let you know you'll lose everything. And some people go, well, it's not risk. I'd rather just toe the line so that I can keep life as I know it. And so, yeah, the majority of people are facing that. They have families to feed, and they don't know how to restart, because in most circumstances, it's all they've ever known. Right, so you're talking about someone who's maybe been in the academia for a very long time, and they're going, not only will we forcefully kick you out, we'll also slap a tag on you and call our friends in the media, like a Barry Weiss when she was at New York Times, to smear you and libel you as an anti-Semite. And so you're asking for a type of bravery that I would say most people don't have. And they just go, I'm going to shut up.
I don't know if it's bravery or faith. They don't have enough faith to say no. It's, to me, see, stuff like that becomes an integrity. You know, do you have enough faith in God? Do you have integrity to say no? Absolutely not. I don't care if I have to start over. I don't care if it's going to be rough and tough. So I guess that would be having to be brave enough to step out on faith, but all money ain't good money, and there are consequences to staying in, because that means that you have made that kind of like your God when you you know, put your integrity and your morals to the side for something else. That means that your values, you know, you value it more than you value your relationship with God. That's how I look at that. Now, that's how I look at it. I'm not saying I've always looked at it like that, but that's how I look at it now.
Answer to that for people that are listening is take your kids out of the schools. You don't need these schools. I mean, what is the upside? You're paying an absolute fortune for your children to go to debt. The system is rigged anyway, right? You think they're going to have the same jobs they want their children to go on. What does it say about our society that Norm Finkelstein it can achieve tenure, but an admitted child rapist like Jeffrey Epstein had a office at Harvard University? Like that wasn't what caused the billionaire backlash, which would have made sense. We're all pulling our money unless you get this person who doesn't have any sort of an academic career, by the way, off of our campus. No, and this was after he admitted and served time in jail. Jeffrey Epstein still had
that's
an
a
office
problem for me.
at Harvard University campus, and that's why I say to people,
That's a problem
that's a
for
Mossad
me.
operation, no matter which way you look at it. Harvard University, in my view, is running a Mossad operation, but again, don't want to get lost on another tangent. You are absolutely correct that is a stunning example of how the mechanics are when we're speaking about their system of financial blackmail.
There are many aspects to it, and a lot of it has come out in recent months. The paying people $7,000 for each post in support of Israel.
Life-changing money for most influencers.
You ain't lying,
Life-changing.
life-changing.
10 times a day and have $70,000.
Oh, wow.
And I know for a fact, you're saying you can't speak to your source. I know for a fact, because I know someone who took the money, and they wouldn't tell me what billionaire it was, but I can tell you around May of this year, whenever I termed it Operation Mocking Pastor was happening, where every pastor, it seemed, jumped on stage one Sunday and said, don't follow Candace Owens, Tucker Carlson, a very weird sermon to preach all on the same day. It was right after Ted Cruz and Tucker Carlson had debated. There was a billionaire that went out and offered what they said to me was an obscene amount of money for people to begin influencing by creating anti-Candace and Tucker videos. So that's how it works. I mean, that is just how it works. But I think before they were a little less arrogant and they wanted to be less obvious that that's how it worked. And now there's a panic happening. And so in their desperation, and this is what's happened over the last 2 years, they've just been sort of in your face. We're throwing money at the cause. We control everything. And we don't care if you know about it.
Yeah, I totally agree with that.
Need to create more video content?
Okay, y'all didn't get the likes up. I'm out.
Animoto, you can create pro quality videos yourself in just minutes.